Let's talk running back ranks for week 14. We've done multiple rankings videos throughout the year, and we did them in a different format. Last week, we changed up the format, and we're going to stick with that. So rather than going game by game, if you've checked out a video from us before and then talking about each game and all the players in that with rankings on screen, we're just going to show all the rankings. It's a little bit easier for people. Whoops, wrong screen share. Here's the transition. Here's what it looks like. We're going to start from running back 1 and work our way down the list. And we're going to go quick. We're going to go pretty quick. I'll try to make this a little bit more legible for you. Here you go. That should be a little bit bigger on the screen for you. And with this new format, we'll just explain it by doing it. Let's start at the top. Running back 1, Devon Achane taking on the New York Jets. This number 11 means that on average, they allow the 11th most points to fantasy football running backs. So throughout the year, if you take the average points scored by running backs in a game, the New York Jets allow the 11th most. So for an example, you want a low number for your matchup. We all know the Bengals are a pretty rough team at stopping fantasy production from every position, especially running backs. Here they allow the most on the year. This number is not always relevant. A team like the Bears has gone through a lot of injuries throughout the year and is getting healthier. A team like the Ravens had a long stretch of being really bad on defense. That will still show up in their ranking. All right, let's keep things moving, keep things fast, keep things choppy. We've got a whole tier here of these top 4, Achane, Cook, Gibbs, Taylor. If you have them, you're starting them. There's not very many people choosing between Gibbs and Taylor. And then I've got Chase Brown up at 5, probably the highest ranking that he'll see this season. Because he's taking on the Bills, I expect this to be a shootout game. Vegas would expect this to be a shootout game. Joe Burrow is back. They are one of the easiest to score on defenses. Josh Allen and that offense, who have been struggling a little bit. There's not that many stars on the Bills offense. It's Allen, it's James Cook, who I have at 2, and it's Khalil Shakir. It's Gabe Davis. I think they'll solve all of their issues against the Bengals. And even though the Bills have been a tough matchup against other positions, they allow a ton of points to running backs. I've got Chase Brown at 5. Let's go with Bijan Robinson. It's really just, this is a tough matchup. The Seahawks are a very good defense. They don't get brought up a ton as an amazing defense, but they're one of the top 5, top 6, top 7 defenses in the NFL. And Bijan, without his full offense there, I would have a step back before. Let's jump to Bucky Irving. First week back, he's out there getting a ton of work. Sean Tucker, Rashad White are now going to not really be in these ranks. Not players I want to use anymore. It is fully back to Bucky. Judkins for the Browns, ranked very high this week. I've got him at 8, taking on the Titans. It's just one of the easier matchups. So even if I don't trust this Browns defense as a whole, I do really like this matchup, and he has been quite good. Breece Hall taking on Miami. It's another situation of a solid RB2 on the year candidate in a really good matchup. So Judkins and Breece Hall, I both kind of like them in the same range. You could take them and swap them. Same thing with Judkins. If you wanted to bring him down here, I would be all right with that. And then let's talk about Kyren Williams, another play that you could probably bring up into this Bucky Irving range. Arizona, not a matchup I'm worried about. Kyren Williams, I know some people panic about Blake Corum. Let's take a minute to go through some of that. The panic on handcuff players, I think, gets overblown in the week in the week following when they score a touchdown. So if you look at Blake Corum's numbers on the year, anytime I talk about Kyren Williams, people say, but what about Blake Corum? He's taking touches. The thing I will show is snap percentage for that player. So this might show up kind of small on your screen. I'll just talk through it. In week 1 of Blake Corum's second year, he played 17% of the snaps. Then he got up to 30%, 24, 29, 9, 23, 34. He's never getting above 40%. Here's 39, his highest snap percentage, where he had 13 carries and scored 5 fantasy points. Even last week. So right now, people are more panicked about Blake Corum because he scored a touchdown. That's this one right here. On the year, he has 2 touchdowns. I think people misinterpret what a player scoring 3, 4 touchdowns as a second option in the offense feels like, what it looks like. Blake Corum has scored 2 touchdowns on the year. People were panicked in week 3. People are panicked in week 14 about Kyren because he scored one in week 13. He had 7 touches in this game. Blake Corum is not seeing his touches increase throughout the year. He had a stretch of 12, 13, 13, and then The last 3 weeks, he's been single-digit touches, not increasing in the snap share. I'm not really worried about Kyren Williams as a player in this week, in any other weeks, unless we see that number rising. If we see Blake Corum getting 45, 50% of the touches, or if Kyren was hurt, then I would change up the rankings. But I'm just not seeing a constant growth with Blake Corum in terms of his touches like you might see with someone like Kyle Monangai. In his rookie year right now, we have seen his usage grow. We'll talk about him when we get to him in the rankings. Let's go to Saquon and Derrick Henry, these older players. I don't really love the matchup with the Chargers for Saquon. I know it says 18. I'm going to trust that they're still a pretty solid defense, trying to change up their game plan. And if they can't pass the ball efficiently with Justin Herbert, that they're going to try to do other things in their game plan to win by holding on the ball, running it well, and playing defense. I think that would hurt Saquon Barkley. I've got him at 12. Derrick Henry, this is really just the matchup with the Steelers. In any given week, I feel like Derrick Henry and Judkins are pretty similar in my mind. So if you wanted to move Henry up into this range, and same thing with Saquon, I wouldn't think you were insane. At 14, I've got Javonte Williams. I think this game does end up being a shootout. The Lions and the Cowboys, but Detroit has one of the best run defenses in the league for fantasy football purposes, which is why I would bring Javonte Williams down to 14. At 15, I've got Swift. The Packers are a great run defense. They did get gouged a little bit in the past couple weeks. On the year, they're 23, and that does trend closer to the beginning of the year. Coming off of the game on Black Friday where Swift and Monangai both put up 100-yard games, I'm going to say that that's more likely a one-game situation, that they both hit, that two running backs hit 100 yards. This is a good rushing attack. This is a good run-blocking O-line. I don't think they are a fluke. I think that level of success is unsustainable or a little bit fluky. I also expect that the passing game can catch up to how good the Bears have been running. The Bears are really good at running the ball. They also aren't amazing at passing it and sort of do need to run the ball to make this offense work. I watch each Bears game. I watch all of the snaps. There are games where they start the game like trying to pass, trying to have a more balanced attack. And then when it's not working, they pivot more towards just running to get back into the game and to stay in it. So I've only got him as high as 15. Got Monangai ranked down at 28 as the second option. If he doesn't get in the end zone, it definitely hurts. He is less likely than DeAndre Swift to get 100 yards again this week, in my mind. Maybe you believe differently, and I could move Kyle Monangai up to as high as, I don't think I could put him over Genty or Jalen Warren. So 21. I mean, we could take Monangai and bring him up into this range, and I wouldn't think you were insane. Let's go to a what-if player. So sometimes for these rankings, I just rank a player as though if they start, this is where I would have them. There's a chance Omarion Hampton does not return this week. If he does, I expect him to be the lead option in this backfield. I know throughout the year, Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator for the Chargers, has said that Omarion Hampton would be in a split backfield. I think people just misinterpret the statement. In week 1 of the NFL season, when there was no Najee Harris, Omarion Hampton played 80% of the snaps. In other weeks when it was just Omarion Hampton, Kamani Vidal was on that team. He was just on the practice squad. He didn't get elevated. The team trusted Omarion Hampton that much to just play 80, 90% of the snaps. And then someone else got 10%. And that's the split that Greg Roman is talking about. I don't always listen to what a coach says. I listen to what they do with their actions. So his version of a split backfield is 80-20. Kyren Williams is 2/3 Kyren, 1/3 Corum, and it has stayed that way. Travis Etienne, we can talk about another split backfield. That's about 55 to 60% Travis, 40% Tootin. If you watch these games, there are games where Tootin gets in the end zone, and a lot of the time, Travis Etienne gets the first crack at those red zone touches. There's my dog. It's not every single game, but a lot of the time, Travis Etienne is just the lead option here. Just like we pulled up with Blake Corum, we will see that these numbers have tweaked a little bit throughout the year, but he's been around 60% of the touches, and now it's dipping down to 49. I'm going to round that up to 50%. It should just be a little red square on your screen. That means it's gotten below the number 50. But even in a game where he had 49% of the touches, he had 2 touchdowns and 19 fantasy points in PPR scoring. 65% of the touches, 20 points. He had 12 carries in this game against Tennessee, who are a little bit tougher on run defense, and just did not find the end zone on this day and gives you 5. I don't see any reason that he wouldn't be into the 50s to 60% of snaps with double-digit touches, 15 to 20 opportunities against the Colts, and getting right back to 15 to 20 fantasy points. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. So I've got him at 17 on the week. I don't love Travis Etienne. I just think he's a solid RB2, which would mean running back 12 through 24, which is where I have him ranked each week and which is where he's been on the year. RJ Harvey as a lead back. Let's pull up snap percentages again on him. He's also in a split backfield, even without J.K. Dobbins, 61% of the touches, 47% of the touches. I expect him to be somewhere between 50 and 60% of the work against Las Vegas. We're hoping that he gets into the end zone, and we're just hoping for a little bit of passing game. So I think he's a solid RB2 for you this week. I've got him at 18. Someone like Ken Walker, we could take and put ahead of those guys. I wouldn't be concerned if you had Ken Walker here at 15. I've got him on the week at 19. It's all a very close grouping here between Swift, Hampton, Etienne, Harvey, Walker. I would comfortably start each of them ahead of Ashton Genty playing the Broncos. It's a tough matchup. This offensive line is not working. This team is really bad. I don't think that's great analysis for fantasy, but they are not getting the ball moving on the ground. They're not getting the run game established. They're not getting things going. Genty is a fantastic player. It's just not working yet. So I'm going to start a lot of guys ahead of Genty. It wouldn't surprise me if he outscored a lot of these options. I have him at 20. It wouldn't surprise me if Genty was a top 10 back on the week. My rankings here are more of my confidence level starting a player. There's a really good chance in my mind that the Broncos stymie this run game, and then he just has a rough week. Let's burn through some of these options here. Jaylen Warren, I'm not totally buying in that it's a full split backfield. Even if it is, I like Jaylen Warren as a lead option. I just don't like the Ravens matchup. Devin Neal, I think he is the number one option here. He's just not that good. Tampa Bay does allow quite a bit of points to running backs. Here we're looking for a lower number means a better matchup. They allow the 12th most. So that would mean only 11 teams allow more points to fantasy running backs in a game. I don't know that Devin Neal is good enough to take advantage of that. I think he's in a similar situation to Trey Benson. I like Trey Benson as a player more than Devin Neal. If Trey Benson plays, I think he's going to get about 60% of the snaps and double-digit touches, 12 to 14 rushing opportunities, 1 to 2 targets, and then someone else will fill in behind him. In the 1 to 2 games that Trey Benson was the lead back, that's about the pattern we saw. And I think that's more of the skill of the player as compared to just what Arizona wants to do. They don't have great running backs. Bam Knight has been okay. Michael Carter is not that good. Amari DiMarcado has filled in a role when he was healthy, but again, not that good. I don't know that Trey Benson is elite. He's better than those guys, but he's not great. And the Rams are one of the toughest defenses to run on. We did see Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle combine for a decent game against the Rams. I don't know that Arizona could do that. Let's talk David Montgomery, a player I've got ranked at 24. I wouldn't be surprised if you put him up here at 20. Without Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think people need to understand more that when a wide receiver or a pass catcher goes out in an offense, those targets or that work doesn't just transfer to another wide receiver. It could just be more running. This team could just decide, hey, we have two. Excuse me. This team could just decide that they have two very good running backs, and they're going to have a game plan of running the ball a lot more. We were just talking about the Rams defense last week. That's what the Panthers did. They ran the ball 40 times as opposed to passing 20 times. So without Amon-Ra St. Brown, we could see a situation like that. I'm not calling for it. I'm just saying when a pass catcher goes out, it doesn't just all translate work to other pass catchers. Sometimes that work goes away, and sometimes it translates to a running game. So the Lions missing Sam Laporta, missing Brock Wright, the backup tight end, missing Amon-Ra St. Brown, they're starting to run out of great players. So I expect that teams take their offensive options and just start ranking them. Like Jameson Williams, really good. Jahmyr Gibbs ahead of JMO. Gibbs, JMO, Monty, Isaac Tesla, and then kind of nothing else for the Lions. So I expect the work to go to their stars. Woody Marks is a player who just looks like he's hurt. Sometimes he finds the end zone, but a lot of the times Woody Marks is getting the lead opportunities and getting you about 8-9 PPR fantasy points. The Chiefs are actually a pretty tough team to run the ball on, move the ball on in general. They're not an elite Chiefs defense, but they have still been good. So I'm not ever that excited to start Woody Marks. If he gets a touchdown, he'll finish as an RB2, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was outside that range. I would, however, start him ahead of someone like Kyle Monangai, ahead of someone like Chris Rodriguez. And actually, this is all kind of a tier. Hunt, Marks, Rodriguez, we'll move them around. If you're picking between these guys, it gets into the situation of, man, we don't know the future. I would start Marks the same amount that I would start Rodriguez, the same amount that I would start Kareem Hunt. It's all kind of a blob of decent lead options that aren't amazing. We've talked to Kyle Monangai. We've talked Kenneth Gainwell, who's in the short end of a split, just like Monangai. I've got Monangai ranked a little bit higher. These are both kind of tough teams to run on. Like we talked about with Baltimore throughout the season, the number of the ranking for Baltimore is going to be skewed because this is a season-long 13. On the season, they allow the 13th most points to running backs, but they have had games where their entire defense was hurt. So they are actually a pretty tough team to run on. I've got Gainwell at 29. Bam Knight I have at 30, and this is ranked as though he's starting. If he's a starter, I could see him as high as 25, 26, kind of in that range. Tony Pollard, I don't really want to be using. Zach Charbonnet, it wouldn't surprise me if I don't understand what Seattle is doing. That doesn't mean I'm right and they're wrong. It means they're right and I don't understand it. The way that they're using their running backs, it's been working for them. They've been quite successful. I've got Charbonnet at 32. Unless we see it flip back to Charbonnet as the lead option, I'll be using Ken Walker more. There was a period in the season where I was ranking Charbonnet ahead because he was getting all the goal line work. He was getting more touches. He was on the higher side of a 50-50 split. But right now it's been 50-50 and Ken Walker has been the lead option. We talked about ETN. We've talked about Tootin. He does find the end zone. He is getting 40 to 50% of the touches. I don't know that he's usurping this role and taking it over. I've got him at 33. P. Ryan, I think he could find the end zone. We're now just starting to get into the tier of, we can even just spell this out like touchdown. Do these guys get a touchdown? If they get a touchdown, it makes their game. Tajay Spears will probably get you 5 or 6 points on his PPR usage, receptions. If he gets a touchdown, he's usable. These guys are not particularly ranked. Do I like Algier more than P. Ryan? Sure. Do I think Ollie Gordon gets a crack at the end zone before P. Ryan? Possibly. Kind of just how does that game break down? Do they get tackled within the 4 or 5 yard line? If they do, sometimes P. Ryan comes out and takes those. Same thing for Miami. Sometimes it's an Ollie Gordon short yardage. That doesn't mean it is every time. So all of these guys are usable and you're just hoping for a touchdown. And then this is kind of the no thanks tier. And then we could talk about some of the it depends tier. If Aaron Jones plays, I would have Aaron Jones around RJ Harvey, Ken Walker, Genty, probably right behind Jaylen Warren. So if Aaron Jones is playing and the lead option, I would have him at 22 ahead of Devin Neal. If it's not Aaron Jones and it's just Jordan Mason, similar spot, right around Jaylen Warren, maybe ahead of Jaylen Warren, but negligibly different. If it's just Kimani Vidal and not Omarion Hampton, then I would have Vidal kind of in that same range. Lead option for a team running that I don't think is amazing. I would definitely have him ahead of Trey Benson. I would have him ahead of Devin Neal, and I would put him right around Jaylen Warren. I like Genty as a player quite a bit more than Kimani Vidal, and that would be enough to put him ahead of Vidal. And then here are the guys that I have listed as out, and we're at the ending. So we'll go through this one last time. I'll scroll this down as I talk. Hey, thank you if you've made it to the end. We will also be releasing wide receiver ranks at the same time. So a link to that will be on your screen. And we've hit the bottom here. So I'll leave this up as we do the outro. If you are interested in playing Dynasty Fantasy Football, if this week 14 is a week where you need to make it, you need to win to get into the playoffs or your season ends, consider playing Dynasty. Your season doesn't have to end right now. In Dynasty and Fantasy Football, we are right back up in the offseason, making trades, making plans for next year. Some of the teams I've had the most fun with in Fantasy Football this year are Dynasty teams, and that started way back in February of this year when I took over a couple orphan teams. So some of my favorite teams have been teams that are not winning. I've just been making moves like grabbing players like Travis Etienne very cheap in the offseason because people thought he wasn't going to have any role, and I've got big value gainers there. So I've been making a lot of moves in the running backs, finding guys that have decreased value in the offseason and value that rises in season, and making trades based on that, gaining a ton of value on this dynasty team. It's a team that is not winning, but it's poised to really compete next year based on moves I've made in the offseason and throughout the year. So fantasy can be fun all offseason. If you made it to the end, thank you very much. Let me know with a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.